Hello, welcome. It is Health Hacks with Mark L. White. I'm Rusty Humphreys. We've got a huge show for you. Mark's got a great guest. First of all, Mark, Health Hacks with Mark L. White, talking about the latest, greatest, the newest technologies, things that are happening in the world, right?
Yeah, we're talking about all the things you can do to stay young and healthy and hopefully avoid big pharma and pharmaceuticals. And I'm here today with a friend of mine who came down to visit, Danny Vega. He's down from Tampa, but you're originally from Miami, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's like a homecoming for me.
And it's really cool. We were talking right before the show, and I admire this guy because he has a family, and he has something called the fat fueled family, and I have my family, and the hardest thing to do is get them to eat healthy and get them to stay fit. I mean, I do have a very fit family.
Yeah.
But I want to learn from you, so I'm really happy you're down here.
Well, this is one of the most exciting topics for me to talk about. So I'm excited. When you ask me about my kids and in general kids, it's super important because I mean, right now, 50% of children have a chronic disease, and by 2025, about 80%. That's if we're including ADHD, asthma, food sensitivities. So it's a huge important thing. The fact that we are changing our children's genetics and epigenetics and making them weaker and less resilient. And so, especially because our lifestyles are just so comfortable and everything is so convenient that nowadays that adversity, you need to manufacture it. And so you have to challenge them. So that's a big part of what I do with them.
No, everything's too easy. I woke up last night at 2 a.m. and I walk into my daughter's room because her lights were on, and she's on her iPhone and on her laptop at the same time. And I'm thinking, what kind of generation are we raising?
Yeah, it's very, very addictive. The screens are really addictive. We have friends who are occupational therapists, and they have kids who come into their office with tics and just all types of really just excitatory symptoms, like just overly sympathetic. So GABA, their GABA's down, and their what's the opposite of GABA? The excitatory, I forget what it is, but either way, they're and these screens are playing a big part of it, And when she does screen detox,
Serotonin?
No, not serotonin. So GABA is the calming one, and then there's the opposite one that I'm forgetting.
Adrenaline?
I got it now. It's glutamate. So the glutamate's through the roof, and the screens fuel that. And so they've had screen detoxes, for example, because you mentioned the screens. They have kids go on a 2-week screen detox and they lose their tics.
Yeah, last year we took one of the cell phones away from my daughter, and within a few days it was like she was more focused. So it's really amazing what's going on with the generation.
Yeah, and if you notice what's happening. People like Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, they didn't let their kids have phones until they were 18. And some of these other top executives didn't let their kids have iPads and technology. What is that telling you? I mean, on top of the fact that who knows, the EMF stuff I'm not quite convinced on yet, but it could be an issue. It's another form of like environmental toxins that people are getting. But the addictive properties of it, and the fact that it's on top of the fact that they can't put the screen down, they don't interact the same way. You see these people, these kids, you go to their Instagrams or whatever, their social media, it's a bunch of selfies, and it's this crazy personality, amazing, coming through the phone, and then you meet them in person, they're totally different.
Yeah, well, I think what we've lost is like the in-person relationships and playing outside, which gets me to my next point. Now, you have 2 boys, right?
Yes.
How old are your boys?
So my oldest is 8 and my youngest is 5. Desmond is 8 and Dean is 5.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you raise them. I take it they don't have phones yet.
No, they don't have phones, but they do have iPads. But with the iPads, we do have educational stuff that they do because we're homeschoolers. But most of the time, in the morning, there's no screens at all. In the evenings, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are days that there's no screens at all on in the house. We're doing reading, so I'm reading to my kids, and I have my 8-year-old read to me as well.
Wow.
There's a really cool series, if you're interested, called The Warrior Kid. and there's 3 of them out right now, and so we're on the 3rd one that just came out. My oldest, the way we kind of um, share our responsibilities. So we're a homeschooling family. So I'm blessed that I can be at home because I'm working at home doing what I do. So in the morning, my oldest wakes up at 6:30 a.m. His first thing that he does when he wakes up is always making his bed. He makes his bed and tidies up his room. That way he doesn't have to worry about things piling up, and then he has to do it for an hour, and then I gotta like convince him to clean his room because it's just too much for him. So if I do a little bit of that every morning, his room stays clean, relatively clean for a boy. And then the next thing we do, as soon as he's done, we get out and we walk outside and we go around the block. And while we're walking every morning, we're setting our intentions for the day. So there's usually around 3 intentions that he sets for the day. So some days he'll say, I wanna be more patient with my brother today because his brother is
he's a tough kid, huh?
Yeah. And his younger brother is just very intense. And then he'll say, well, the other thing I want to work on is I want to clean up after myself, because sometimes he will take, let's say, a piece of food that's wrapped up and he'll leave the wrapper there. He doesn't immediately throw things away and put things away, and it drives us nuts. So we do that. And then when we're done with that, we do a quick workout, so like 15 minutes, so he gets some blood flowing. We do our morning reading, and then after we're done with all of that, he has breakfast and I pass him on to my wife.
So well, that sounds like you got your morning routine out of the way. You had your quality time with your kids.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're very passionate about parenting. Tell me what drives you.
Man, so kids are the future. Like we don't have a control over a lot of things. I've in the past, I've been involved in politics and try to change the world that way. Realized that because I studied politics in undergrad, which is hilarious because I'm a political atheist now. That's what I call myself.
Really?
Yeah. So we're like, how can we change the world? How can the things that we don't like about this world, how can we change them? Well, 3 ways that I see is I can teach my kids financial responsibility. I could teach them how to be prepared in different situations. So my oldest is a Cub Scout. We also do firearm safety, which is another, just because if my kid doesn't know what guns are, he's not going to respect them. And if he does know, then he's going to at least respect them, and he's going to know how to handle them. And they also do jujitsu. Jujitsu, I think, for kids is great because it puts them in really compromising positions, and it gets them comfortable with losing and being in crappy situations.
Also, it teaches them self-confidence and assertiveness.
Yeah. And so that helps a ton. And so we teach them about how to be prepared, how to be financially responsible, and in general, if our kids are learning all of these things, they are going where there were 2, me and my wife. Now there's 4 of us, and then they're going to meet someone, hopefully, when they grow up that has the same mindset, and that's how we change the world, I think.
Mark, one of the interesting things about his kids are their names. You've got interesting names for your kids, I was seeing.
Yeah. So Desmond, our oldest, number one, I didn't tell you guys this, but Desmond was named after a character in Lost, the TV show.
Oh, I love that show. I remember Desmond.
Yeah, so you remember Desmond, and then his middle name is Kal-El, which is Superman's Kryptonian name. So he's Desmond Kal-El Vega, and then my youngest, Dean, is actually also named after another TV show character that we really love, and his middle name's Logan. So Dean Logan Vega. So he's Wolverine. So I got Superman and Wolverine as my kids.
Wow. Did you call him Superman and Wolverine, or did you just go with Desmond and?
I go with Desmond, Dean, but like they both kind of live up to their their middle names, because my oldest is like, he's a Boy Scout. Like, he is such a good kid. My youngest has a really bad temper, and he also has really good healing powers, apparently, because he got hit by a car last year, and
wow,
he's still here.
Oh my gosh,
that's got to be scary. I could not imagine my kids getting hit by a car. How'd you get through that?
That was the worst day of our lives. Obviously, I had a friend in town who was coming home with me to record a podcast with my wife. So our nanny was walking the kids to the pool, and long story short, without going too much into the details, someone hit him. No one was at fault, even the person who drove the car, because I saw the video, because our neighbor had a camera, the Ring camera.
Yeah.
And then, imagine we get there, my wife's calling me, running. She left the doors
Oh my
wide
God.
open, the garage open. My house was wide open for hours because we went straight to the hospital. And thankfully, every step across was okay. First, no fractures to the skull, no swelling in the brain. Vital organs are good. Liver values were a little bit high because probably because of the pain. No broken bones, no issues with the spine. Finally, what really the main things that we saw, because imagine when I walk into that room and I see my son full of blood, his ear is almost completely torn off, and road rash all over his face, and
Right.
his eyes are rolling up in the back of his head with no one's given him anything yet. And so I'm terrified. I don't know if his skull's exposed. I don't know if his brain's exposed. I don't know any of these things. So it was a very hard thing, and luckily the people at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in St. Pete were amazing, and the surgeon was amazing. There's absolutely, if you were to look at him physically, there is no evidence that he went through what he went through. The only thing he had was for 5 weeks he had to wear a brace because he had a few torn ligaments in his cervical spine.
Did
So
you
he
talk
lived
about
up.
that in your podcast? I mean, was that something that your audience went through with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like when this whole thing happened, well, when we started the podcast was September. So right after this happened in August, this was fresh in our minds. So this is definitely something that we spoke about, especially because I was talking about what led me to do this because I was working as a medical device rep for the past over a decade. And I was doing all of this on the side as a hobby because I love this stuff. And originally, my first career, I was the head strength and conditioning coach for VCU basketball in Virginia.
Uh-huh.
So I left that career because I went to go pursue money, and that's fine. And I did find something that was quality of life was great as a medical device rep. You make your own schedule, but there started to be a little bit of a cognitive dissonance there, where I was starting to see the amount of waste
Uh-huh.
in the medical industry, what goes on in the hospitals, it just started to feel dirty. And between my manager getting fired and this happening, that's when I had decided a year before, June of 2017, that I was going to quit my job. That was
Uh-huh.
my goal. And this just pushed me over the edge. And eventually in September, I quit my job.
It's like the disease of more. If you've ever heard of that, the disease of
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
It's this whole concept that when you chase your career for the money, it's never enough. It's never
Yeah, that's
enough.
true.
And when you do something that you're passionate about, things just fall into place.
Yeah, and I'm making probably a third of what I made before, but I'm so fulfilled.
You're happier.
I'm so happy, and we don't worry. We don't need for anything.
Mhm.
We're traveling all over. We work with companies, and we get to go to conferences. And as homeschoolers, every time our kids go with us places, it's like a big field trip. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. And you get that quality time with your kids too.
Yeah.
So getting back to, I know your other passion is nutrition and eating, and you're the keto guy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how did you get into that? I tried keto diet for about a month, and it was tough.
Yeah, that first month, especially if you don't know what to expect and you don't know where things can go wrong, it's really, really tough. It's actually, if people quit in that first month, I totally understand. And but at the same time, they're missing the payoff that
Mhm.
comes. The most important thing when you start a ketogenic diet, when basically a ketogenic diet is a low carb, high fat diet, you drop the carbs enough to where you're now signaling your body to create ketones because
Mhm.
there's no glucose for your brain, and so your brain needs glucose. So you're going to create the glucose from triglycerides that you eat, but you're also going to create ketones
Mhm.
for your muscles and for exercise and things like that. And actually, there's some research that shows that that the brain actually prefers ketones. The brain can't run on fat, but it does do well on ketones. We just never seen that studied. And so your insulin levels drop, and what happens is you start to excrete a lot of water. So
Uh-huh.
that first week, you're losing a bunch of weight. You're like, awesome. But then you're losing electrolytes too. And so
Uh-huh.
that's where that keto flu comes in. So the first month, it's super important to increase your sodium intake. So have
Mhm.
lots of salt. Don't worry about the old American Heart Association guidelines. Those are terrible. They're still telling people to eat, their heart healthy grains and all this crap. So I wouldn't listen to them. But you need to supplement. You need to take sodium, and that's as simple as just adding a bunch of salt and even some bone broth with some salt.
Hmm.
But then the other thing is very important to me is magnesium. Potassium is another electrolyte that tends to go down at first, but it's not a big issue. At least for me, I find that if I'm not supplementing magnesium as an active person, I have cramps. And people who aren't active, really the most important part for them to supplement is the first month. And if they're not active after that, there's two research studies that I've seen on potassium and magnesium that after 28 days or so, the things kind of come back to normal.
Did you find that it's hard to exercise on ketone? Because if you don't have, if when you're in ketosis and you're not taking in carbs, you lose that energy source to go out and lift weights. And
Yep.
But obviously you're in great shape. So what's the secret?
So
What's the hack, I should say?
yeah, part of it is knowing that in the first month, if you really want to commit to a ketogenic diet, knowing that your workouts have to be chill. They can't be too crazy, because you're gonna start doing what everybody does, which is testing ketones, whether it's peeing on a urine strip or taking blood, the blood test, and you'll see that you're actually creating ketones, but your body's not using them. So now you've cut off that glucose that you need, and your body's learned to burn so well, and you're replacing it with fat, but your body is not using that as well as it can. So that first month I took it real easy, and I did not have like the pumps that I used to have, but I found that all of that came back within 3 months. So fat adaptation is something that people talk about, and as you're able to use more of those ketones, your workouts will come back. I think I see the rip the Band-Aid off method is better than trying to slowly taper off, because if you're telling your body to burn fat and burn ketones or else, when you really do that rip off the Band-Aid method,
I remember when I started the keto diet, I'm like, okay, when's the cheat day coming? But there is no cheat. There is no cheat day.
Actually, I had a fight with my wife about this because, of course, everything I do, and I'm really blessed to have a wife who's kind of on the same page with me on everything that's important.
That's awesome.
And so I said, I looked at this keto diet and I think we should try it. And then she's like, well, what about like cheat days and stuff? And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Based on what I've read, I don't think that's good. She's like, no cheat days. And then we always tell people, like, try it. And once the ketones are in your system, the ketones will do the work. You will not even have the cravings that you used to have. And so you're going to resensitize your palate to more savory foods, salty foods, flavors that are not these dumbed down, scientifically created in a lab flavors that are made to get you addicted. Like, you don't see in nature, you don't see carbohydrates and fats paired. But all the delicious foods that we eat that are killing us have those carbs and those fats.
You mean
paired.
Doritos aren't natural?
Especially whatever the newest flavors are. It's like, Doritos, whatever, cupcake Dorito flavor.
I have a quick question because you did a health hack show last week, Mark, on GainsWave, which was something that can you explain it for a second, Mark? And the reason I'm bringing it up is I heard that earlier today you got it done. Is that right, Danny? And what was that like? So first of all, what is GainsWave, and then what happened?
Yeah, so GainsWave is using pulse waves or sound waves to rejuvenate the blood vessels in the penis. Basically, as we age, the blood vessels in your body start to deteriorate. Now, in the penis, the blood vessels are very, very small, and they're like the canary in the coal mine. They're like the first sign of aging. When you're in your 30s and 40s, and the erections aren't as good as when they were in the early 20s.
Although I'm not sure I want to hear anything small about my penis. I'm just bringing that up, Mark. That's me.
We won't talk about your penis, but coming back to my friend Danny, we invited him to come down here and experience GainsWave. So how was it?
It was awesome. I was super excited about it because the day I had the call.
Not literally excited.
Oh yeah. I was afraid that I was gonna that someone said good luck. Hope it's okay. Hope you enjoy it. And I said, well, I don't want to enjoy it too much. That'll be awkward.
So they've been talking. My question, first of all, is did it hurt? What did it feel like?
It did not hurt. There was a little bit of discomfort. they were, the guy who did the procedure for me was trying to tell me, like, compared to my tattoos, I would say it didn't even hurt as much as my tattoos. And my tattoos, I wouldn't say that they hurt. None of my tattoos hurt. That I have several tattoos. um, and it was 20 minutes, but we were having a conversation the whole time. It just feels like they're taking like a little miniature jackhammer, and they're kind of pulsing that on your junk, and that's how it felt. It was 20 minutes of it, and it was very weird because I had some numbing cream there, so I'm still numb. That's just kind of weird, but it doesn't affect. If I had to empty my bladder, it wouldn't affect that.
Yeah,
Okay, so it wasn't horribly painful, and and there's a couple, you have to do a few treatments, I understand. So you're not going, I ain't going back because this is too much.
Oh, no way. I'm like I said before today when we were talking about it, I am head first. When I do something, I want to do the whole works. Like, give me the real treatment, the way people do it. So we recorded some videos and we talked about it, and I love that because I'm going to share that with my audience. And it was totally cool. And like I said before earlier today, like I wouldn't consider myself someone who has erectile dysfunction. There was a questionnaire that I had to answer, and all of those things. But I will say that no question, there's a difference between the man I am now and the man I was 15 years ago. It's different.
So, Mark, let me ask you, why would somebody need it for, like, is it like a tune-up thing? It makes a difference even if you don't have ED problems?
I call it erectile optimization, not erectile dysfunction. Dysfunction implies there's a problem there. And just like everything else, like when we get older, and you're a little out of shape, you don't sit there and say, well, I'm obese, or you don't wait till you get obese until you do something about it. You start doing something when you start putting on those pounds now so you don't get obese. And it's the same thing. When you're older and your penis isn't working the way it did, say, when you're in your early 20s, what are you going to do? Wait until it doesn't work at all?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
But going back, I mean, one thing about Danny, I thought that was so interesting. I mean, he has his own podcast, and tell me a little bit about that. And how did you, I'm doing this now, and you're my fourth guest, and I'm so happy you're here. But tell me about some of the experiences you've had and some health hacks that you've uncovered.
Yeah. So first of all, podcasting is the most selfish thing that I do. I love it so much, and it's a win-win for everybody. I get to learn and talk to the people that I'm interested in talking to, and people are just along for that ride.
Mm-hmm.
So when I originally found the ketogenic diet, I started to listen to podcasts. Exactly what I did. And one of the podcasts that I listened to, I actually reached out to the host, and I said, hey man, I'm an ex college football player. This is my background. If you ever want to talk about ketogenic diets and athletes and sports, let me know. I'd love to. I didn't even know what that looked like. Mm-hmm. And it ended up that I started off as a guest on his show, and after we recorded, he said, you need to be my co-host. And I said, well, let me talk to my wife. Wow. And that was in 2016, and we had a very successful show, and it's led to me being able to do a bunch of speaking engagements. And I started the Fat Fueled Family podcast with my wife in September of last year when I quit my job, and it has been such an amazing experience to share this with my wife. The minute we started it, we were so excited, even on the air, like to be recording and to have a platform mm-hmm. to talk about all the things that we love. And so you do get better over time. You get more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing that I think has been helpful is when I get really, really busy and I don't have time to prep as much as I usually do, I can just wing it sometimes because I've been doing it for so long. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah.
So your podcast is called Fat Fueled Family. So that implies that your whole family's on the keto diet?
Yeah, like my kids are, I wouldn't say that I put my kids on a ketogenic diet because one of the central things with us is keeping their autonomy. So we want to have conversations with them, and we want to model the behavior that we would like to see in them. But then we do have certain non-negotiables, like in my house, for instance, I don't keep any bread, we don't keep grains or processed sugars or food dyes. So my kids...
No Coca-Cola, huh?
No, definitely not. No. Yeah. And my boys, we have their Fat Fueled Kids account, which is all we're doing on there is showing the things that we're doing with our kids, because we want people to see that this is doable and it's sustainable, and especially if you're not forcing things down your kid's throat. So when the kids first started, because we were kind of, from the minute they were born, we were already like, we weaned them off of breastfeeding with raw liver and soft-boiled egg yolks. So we were like doing all this weird stuff back then. So I can't compare my kids to other kids, because I didn't have to rip them away from the Western diet and break that carbohydrate addiction. But I will say that regardless of your child, whether he or she is someone who is addicted to carbs already, I guarantee you, your child, your picky child, is like every other child. My child, if you put sugar in front of them, they're gonna want to have it. And so, having these conversations with them, and we share our meals, like we share the kids' meals, we show what's on their plate, and it's super interesting to see that over time their taste buds change. My kids are eating liver, my kids are eating organ meat, and all this stuff, and I'm like, this could be your kid, like, look, this is how we do it. That's part of what the platform is all about.
So, like, if your 8-year-old, if Kalel
Yeah.
and and Wolverine, I mean, they have superpowers. But like, when they go to a party and there's a birthday cake, do they? What do they do? Do they say no, or are they that disciplined?
That's
I mean,
kryptonite.
We play games sometimes, so we'll do, like, this is part of the whole education, and seeing, is this stuff really sticking? So we'll say, is this an effective food or an ineffective food? Because we want to enable them good or bad, and they're really good at that. But one of the things that we hear is, they're just kids, let them live. What's some candy now and then? And I agree with that. What is wrong with some candy now and then? But not in the world that we live in now. The world we live in now, kids are going to school, they're being rewarded with candy in class. They're have a constant drip of sugar coming into the system. The average person has 11 meals a day, and most of them are sugar. And so what we say is, Halloween, eat all the candy you want. Birthday parties, have all the junk you want. But here's what happens. Perfect example. One time, my son, we went to a party. He saw the cotton candy. He saw the pizza. He crushed them both within 10 minutes. And 30 minutes later, he was on the couch at the party, doubled over, wishing he had never done it. He was crying. And I said, you know what, buddy? Don't get sad. Don't regret it. This is a learning experience. We always say winners don't lose, they learn. And I said, remember this feeling the next time you're presented with this option, and just choose better.
I think I love what you're talking about, because you're really getting to this whole concept of mindset and focus, and that's very difficult with kids. I mean, especially in the social media era, and
And we try to I try to always give my kid nuggets every day. Like every time there's a teaching moment, I try to take advantage of that. And the mindset stuff, trust me, I am talking every day, and I'm living this, and I'm modeling it for him. He doesn't get it, but you know what? If I keep on telling him every time, hey man, pause, just take a second before you react.
Breathe.
Eventually, he's gonna breathe. He's gonna slow it down, and he's gonna react better. And if I can teach my kid that, when I just learned that like 5 years ago, that's a win. That's a win. Huge win.
All three of my kids, I have 3 kids, Ethan, Lauren, and Alyssa, and all of them are amazing athletes. That's something, though, that I find it's very hard to get those kids in the mindset. What do you do for your kids on fitness? I know with our kids, we always make sure they're outside. Like when we get the phones out of their hands, it's like, go outside and play.
Yeah. Like we always say, wow, what a beautiful day. Go outside. And they're usually go outside. And we are so lucky, again, that on our block, we have 4 families that have kids the same age. And since the summer, now that the sun's going down later, my kids are outside every day until like 8:40 at night. Outside. They'll come in. Sometimes they'll eat dinner. Sometimes they won't. But when they come in, they'll get some water. They'll go right back out. That's what I want.
No, I think that's so admirable. I mean, I've learned so much, Danny. I think I'm so happy you're down here. And I think the big health hack is how to keep kids healthy. Yeah. And, you've done an admirable job.
Thank you. We're still got some time to go, so we'll see what the results are. But we're excited.
So if somebody wants to learn more about this, if somebody like myself, I mean, somebody with kids, somebody with a family, how do they learn more? What do they do?
So one of the things that we offer, we have an actual program it's called Killing It Fat Fueled. So they can go to killingitfatfueled.com, and
Mhm.
there's a recipe book, and there's a bunch of all the things that we talk about. We just put them on paper, and we try to give people kind of just some goalposts and some guidance to help them as they transition their family. Super important thing. The first thing that I can tell you, that if it was just one thing that you had to remember, is to get the junk out of the house.
Uh-huh.
You know, when you say your kid's a picky eater, I'm going to tell you who's buying the food.
That's awesome.
You're buying the food. And we feel worse than they do. Because when we take it away, we're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then we notice that nothing happens.
Yeah.
They're totally fine.
Yeah, it's amazing because kids will not starve.
Yeah, they won't.
They won't starve. You take out the junk food, they'll figure out what to eat.
Yes. Yeah. After 3 days, because we took the junk food out, and after on the third day, my wife came home with a big bag of Sprouts. We got Sprouts up there. It's a really cool grocery store, and they were tearing apart all the meat and all the like fruit and veggies. And we don't force them to eat vegetables. And it's funny because they'll be like, Desmond will be like, you know, it's been a while. Can we get some broccoli, or can we have some this? And I'm like, oh, it's hilarious.
I can never imagine my kid saying, "Hey, Dad, can you get me some broccoli?" That's
It's
awesome.
weird when that happens. It's cool when it happens.
Well, Danny, thank you so much. Thank you for coming down and visiting us. And
appreciate it.
you know, when the gains wave takes effect,
Yeah.
I want to hear more about it. Not too much detail, but a little bit more detail.
I'll have to talk to my wife first and see what I can say, but definitely.
All right, you've been watching Health Hacks with Mark L. White. If you want to find out more on Danny Vega, go to fatfueled.family. You can find out more on marklwhite.com. Also, check out the YouTube channel or find out more iTunes. Subscribe there, Google Play, and other places. This has been Health Hacks with Mark L. White. See you next time.